وتعليما من شيء قدير. Chapter 10, visiting the sick and supplicating for them. Um, Before we move on, there are a number of hadiths that I think that are kind of missing from uh from previous section here. So I mentioned optional prayers. So I mentioned 4 rakahs before and after Dhuhr, 4 rakahs before Asr. Then it skips to 2 rakahs. And it skips to 2 rakahs of Fajr, but doesn't mention Isha. Okay, and so the Prophet ﷺ said, the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to pray 2 rakahs before Isha. Right, so the Prophet ﷺ, I believe in Sahih Muslim, Allah sallu قبل المغرب ألا صلوا قبل المغرب ألا صلوا قبل المغرب لمن شاء وكما قال, approximate wording for the Prophet ﷺ that he said, pray before Maghrib, pray before Maghrib, pray before Maghrib for whoever wants to. Right, so the 2 rakahs you pray when Maghrib comes in, call the adhan, pray 2 rakahs and then pray Maghrib, and then there's 2 rakahs after Maghrib. So it didn't mention the 2 rakahs after Maghrib. I'm not sure why. Uh, and then the Prophet ﷺ also encouraged us, he said, between every single iqama, the Prophet ﷺ said between every single iqama and adhan, there's 2 rakahs. So therefore, there's 2 rakahs, obviously then at least 2 rakahs. So that's between Maghrib and Isha, before Maghrib and before Isha, there's 2 rakahs. And then the Prophet ﷺ also prayed 2 rakahs after Isha. And the Prophet ﷺ also told us to pray witr. Does it mention us does it may pray witr? We mentioned that hadith last week. You know, Inna Allah witrun yuhibbul witra fa'utiru ya ahl al-Quran. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is an odd number and He loves odd numbers. So make sure you pray odd numbers, O people of the Quran. So praying witr. And then we mentioned qiyam al-layl, right? So praying at night is very important, right? But otherwise, we've got the 2 rakahs before Fajr, starting from Fajr, 2 rakahs before Fajr. And then we have they mentioned that. Yeah, there's a number of things here missing that just are just useful, right? So we've got the 2 rakahs before Fajr. The Prophet ﷺ said the 2 rakahs before Fajr, we mentioned it here, that hadith there, is better than the dunya and everything in it. Okay, so then Fajr comes in, and then there's no sunnahs after Fajr until the sun is well up. And then so the sunnah to sit or to at least to remain in dhikr from Fajr until the sun is well up, right? And then to pray 2 rakahs, and the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever stays and waits after Fajr and then waits until the sun is well up and then prays 2 rakahs, it gets a reward of a Hajj and a Umrah, a complete Hajj and Umrah, and a complete Hajj and Umrah, and a complete Hajj and Umrah, right? So and then the Prophet ﷺ said, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O son of Adam, don't fail to pray 4 rakahs in the beginning of the day, because if you do so, I will look after you in the end of the day. So that's a minimum of 2 rakahs in the morning, or 4 rakahs in the morning, or 6 rakahs in the morning, or 8 for duha, right? So you did your 2, for example, already, then you can do another 6, etc. So between when the sun is well up and dhuhr, there's 8 rakahs of duha. And then duha comes in, and then there's 2 rakahs of zawal. So the two rakahs of zawal, which is 2 rakahs after the sun has passed zenith. And then he mentioned here 4 rakahs before dhuhr, and then 4 rakahs after dhuhr, and then 4 rakahs before asr. And then we mentioned the hadith just before, 2 rakahs before maghrib, and then 2 rakahs after maghrib. Okay. And then 2 rakahs before isha, and then 2 rakahs after isha, and then witr, and then qiyam al-layl. Right. Uh, um, and then there's also salat al-awwabin, right, which is 2 to 20 rakahs between maghrib and isha. There's also salat al-istikhara, right, You want to you have a good hunch about something that's good. Do the Salat al-Istikhara. Ask for the good in it, or you're not sure. Ask for which one is right. Salat al-Tawbah, right? You make a sin, you do something haram, pray 2 rakahs any time of the day, doesn't matter what, even after sunrise, even after sunset, before sunset, doesn't matter. Tahiyyat al-Masjid, Prophet said, if any of you enters a masjid, then definitely do not sit down until you pray 2 rakahs. So Tahiyyat al-Masjid, 2 rakahs when entering a masjid. What else? 2 rakahs after making wudu. Um, those are the main ones. So, but anyway, he could have mentioned. There's a famous hadith that mentioned that I believe in Ibn Umar that he mentioned specifically to 10 rakahs that he remembered. So 2 rakahs before Fajr, 2 rakahs before Dhuhr, 2 rakahs after Dhuhr, and 2 rakahs after Maghrib and 2 rakahs after 2 rakahs after Isha. I believe that's what they mentions. Is that right? Is it 10 or 12 though? I can't remember now. I'll just quickly look up the hadith, remember correctly. Uh, صليت مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ركعتين قبل الظهر، ركعتين بعد الظهر، ركعتين بعد الجمعة، ركعتين بعد المغرب، ركعتين بعد العشاء. Right, so he said, so Ibn Umar is a well-known hadith. Um, that is in, which mentions, I prayed with the Prophet some 2 rakahs before Dhuhr and 2 rakahs after Dhuhr. So it's very important. And then 2 rakahs after Maghrib and 2 rakahs after Isha. Right, and then also obviously 2 rakahs before Fajr as well. Right, and so that hadith could have been here. That's very useful. Wallahu a'lam. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Virtues of the people of the Quran. So visiting the sick and supplicating for them. عن ثوبان رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من عاد مريضا لم يزل في خرفة الجنة حتى يرجع. Thawban narrates the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, whoever visits a sick person will be in the garden of paradise until he returns. So that does not mean that you should be there for a long time. Many sick people, it's nice for them to be visited, but they don't want you to be there because they need to rest. So it's sunnah to be brief, right? So you should, maybe it's a long journey. But the point is, on the way there and on the way back is difficult. Obviously, if they need help, that's something else. وعن أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال عودوا المريض وامشوا مع الجنائز تذكركم الآخرة. Who says, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri narrates the Prophet ﷺ said, visit the sick and walk with funeral buyers. Right? When people, it says, why? These things will remind you of the afterlife. Seeing people dying, people who are sick, it's very, very important, right? As opposed to live in absence of those things. عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من عاد مريضا لم يحضر أجله فقال عنده 7 مرات أسأل الله العظيم رب العرش العظيم أن يشفيك إلا عافاه الله من ذلك المرض. So this is Abdullah ibn Abbas, the narrator of the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever visits a sick person whose time of death has not yet come and says while he is with him 7 times, I ask Allah the Great, the Lord of the Great Throne, to cure you 7 times. Right? أسأل الله العظيم رب العرش العظيم أن يشفيك. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cure that person. So it's one of these du'as you should say. وعن عثمان بن أبي العاص رضي الله عنه أنه شكى إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وجعا يجده في جسده منذ أسلم، فقال له رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: ضع يدك على آه الذي تألم من جسدك، وقل بسم الله ثلاثا، وقل 7 مرات أعوذ بالله وقدرته من شر ما أجد وأحاذر. So he said, one of the Sahaba, he said that he complained to Prophet ﷺ of a pain in his body, that as soon as he became Muslim, this happened to him. Right? Isn't that strange? He became Muslim and then things got worse. So like, does that mean Allah doesn't like me? No. Right? So difficulty in your life is a message, but it doesn't mean stop doing the good that you're doing. It could mean stop doing the bad that you're doing, right? And it could mean be patient, right? So the Prophet Prophet said to him, put your hand where it hurts on your body. الذي تألم من جسدك. Um, and say Bismillah 3 times, and then say 7 times, I seek refuge in Allah and His power from the evil of what I'm currently experiencing, and what I am wary of in the future. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من يريد الله به خيرا يصب منه. That Abu Hurairah narrates the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever Allah desires good for, He tests him. So this is really, really important, right? So as long as you're not being tested in your deen, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal, right? And so, what does it mean to be patient and to see a difficulty coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is that you is to perceive it coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting a syringe into you and it hurts, and He's injecting good into you. And so you're happy. Alhamdulillah, I'm very happy that Allah is giving me this cure, right? Imagine if you've been waiting for this syringe injection for 5 years. Finally, somebody has brought it from another country for you, and like, Alhamdulillah. And they spent all their money on it, and they traveled so far, and it's like, wow, I really appreciate it. So it hurts when they put in the injection, but when you know what this is, that this, for example, will enable you to breathe properly, will enable you to see properly, whatever it is that will cure you from, it's a huge thing. So don't look at the pain of the syringe, look at the person who's putting the syringe in you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And so it's very, very important that we continually connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in pain, emotional pain, physical pain, whatever it is, right? It's coming straight from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And if you are connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that thing, it's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it turns you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you turn to the pain itself, or you turn to other people, right? Like you're complaining to other people, trying to get what's it called, emotional support from other people, right? Obviously, we all need emotional support when you're going through extreme pain, but when you're like continue complaining to other people, you're always trying to get, you know, kind of somebody to pay attention to you other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's not good. It means you're turning away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So I believe it was Waki' ibn Jarrah, I believe. One of the As-Salaf, he said, complaining to somebody else is like getting dirt from one hand and wiping it on your other hand. So you have mud on your hand and you wipe it on your other hand. Well, what was the point of that? Now both your hands are muddy. So when you complain to somebody and say, "Oh, I'm in a lot of pain, show me sympathy," what's that gonna help you? What's the sympathy gonna help you? Turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The whole point of every single thing, every blessing is turn to Allah. Every difficulty is turn to Allah. Right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending you a difficulty or pain. Be happy and say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. You stub your toe, say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. You have a pain, you say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Make yourself smile and say, this is really good. Allah really loves me, and this is going to make my life really, really good. Right? And what did the Prophet ﷺ say? قال الله تعالى أنا عند ظن عبدي بي. I am exactly at that place where my slave thinks about me. If he has a good opinion of me, that's where I am. If he has a bad opinion of me, that's where I am. So you think, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only made me break my leg so that my life should be ruined. Wrong, right? This is very difficult, of course. There are certain things that will really, really shake you. It's very, very hard. It's really, really hard, right? Really hard. But this is what we should always try and do. Turn to Allah and say, thank you, Allah, for this difficulty in my life, because you are only giving it to me because you love me and you want to increase me and you want to bring me to a level of Iman and a level of Jannah that I could never possibly reach. And it's really good for me, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's there for your benefit. He's not there to ruin you. As opposed to, oh, I knew this would happen. Life is always against me. Allah is always against me. Then that's what's going to happen. وعن أبي سعيد الخدري وأبي هريرة رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال ما يصيب المؤمن من وصب ولا نصب ولا سقم ولا حزن حتى هم يهمه إلا كفر به عن سيئاته. So the Prophet ﷺ said, nothing afflicts a believer of pain, not from pain, of pain, fatigue, sickness, and sadness. You feel sad, right? Not even the worries that worry him, except that it expiates some of his sins. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Right? You didn't have the strength to leave that sin, or you didn't have the strength to make tawbah from it. You can't remember that thing you did, and you've left it now, but you can't remember it. There's something you did, there was a sin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is tidying your whole life up for you. He's going through sifting all the files, tidying all the files up in your life. Like, oh my God, why is it taking so long? Why is it difficulty? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is tidying your life up for you. He's trying to make sure all the things that everything is covered, right? Do you want that or do you not want that? Do you want to come on Yawm al-Qiyamah and have all these sins to answer for, or do you want everything to be overlooked? Right? A little bit of punishment, a difficulty in this life is far better than a moment on Judgment Day. Right? وعن أبي هريرة, so again, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, you stub your toe, you lose some money, you get fired, things fall apart, always say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no, He's there, He's your buddy, He's your number one person, He's got your back. Right? Allahu waliyyu alladhina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the patron. He's the one who's looking after you of the people who believe. And He's taking you out of darknesses, the plural of that mess of all those darknesses, into light. So let Him do His job and stop meddling. Right? Stop meddling. Trying to say like, Allah, don't do that and don't do this and don't do that. It's like, who are you to meddle? Right? You do your job and let Allah do His job. Right? It's very hard, I know, but we will have to try. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال ما أنزل الله داء إلا أنزل له شفاء. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Abu Hurairah said, the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah has not sent down a disease except He has sent down the cure as well. Right? So we should also try and find the cure and be hopeful that there is a cure. أن عائشة رضي الله عنها عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال الحمى من فيح جهنم فأبردوها بالماء. He says, fever is from or like. This is not a correction. I'm just saying an alternative translation, like. Meaning can sometimes mean like. The intense heat of Jahannam. So cool it off with water. So notice here the Prophet is not saying, okay, you have a fever, just suffer and accept it from Allah. No, also cool it off. Take means. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال أكثروا من ذكر هادم or هاذم اللذات. Abundantly remember the destroyer of pleasures. Super important, right? So getting sick is a huge reminder because it shows you how weak you are and how little time you have. So now when you're sick, and now you're better. Now you realize, bro, I'm gonna get sick again, which you are. If you're not gonna have this sickness, you're gonna have that sickness. If you're gonna have this problem, you're gonna have that problem. So you don't have any time. There is no spare time. You do not have spare time. All you can do is prioritize, make a list of your priorities in life and follow that list of priorities, knowing that you're not going to be able to do everything and knowing that you'll die or you get sick or you'll have a problem or this will come in its way and that will come in its way. But as long as you are prioritizing number one, then you're doing good. But don't prioritize number two. That's the problem. When you do number two first, that's supposed to for number one. So remember, these things are going to come in life, difficulties or death itself, right? And um, we should always be careful. There's nothing wrong with looking back in life and saying I could have done more, that I didn't do anything. What's wrong is looking back in life and says I didn't prioritize what I should have done, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me 2 hours on that day and I didn't use it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me 10 minutes on that day and I didn't use it properly. That's the problem. When you look back in your life like, man, I really have very little time. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال أعذر الله إلى امرئ أخر أجله حتى بلغه 60 سنة. God has given excuses to a person until he reaches 60 years, i.e., and أعذره, he has, he's no longer excused. So, i.e., when you're 60, you don't have any excuses anymore. So better get on with this. So it's very, very sad. We see people in their 60s or 70s or 80s, may Allah protect us, not being engaged in ibadah, right? And watching TV or being on the iPhone or whatever it is, smartphone, and just wasting time. Like it's a really, really, it's a what's the word? A travesty, right? Or what's the word? Um, like it's really sad. It's a very sad thing. It's what's the word? There's another word for it. It is uh, I can't remember the word for it. There's a certain word for it anyway. So may Allah protect us. And number one thing, wake up and don't go to sleep. I'm not talking about physically, I'm talking about spiritually. Like we got to get on with it. There's no time to waste. You can have free time or leisure intentionally. Like this is the best thing. Like right now, I should go to sleep, and I shouldn't be doing Quran because that's a priority for my body. Or right now, I should sit down and do nothing, just look at the trees, go for a walk, play tennis, whatever it is, because it's the best thing to do, right? But wasting time is not. You don't have any time for that. And wasting time, according to the Hanafis, is actually haram, right? You're doing something that really has no benefit whatsoever. So you sit down, you come home from work, and you just want to sit down and watch TV for a bit. Okay, what are you watching? Something innocent? Okay, fine. Watch TV for a bit, chill out because you're too stressed. Okay. But for 4 hours, you need to watch TV, you need to relax for 4 hours, right? That's extreme. That's extreme. Right? It doesn't usually take that much time to relax, right? So you get to a point, it's like you don't need that. So you get to the point that you need your food that you need. Like I need to eat this much food, otherwise I'm really stressed. I'm really angry. I'm really like I can't not comfortable. Okay, if I eat that much you need, sleep the amount that you need to function and be healthy. Like I need to sleep this amount of time. Could be a lot, could be a little. Some people need to sleep 10 hours a day. Some people need to sleep 14 hours a day. Like that's what their body needs from them. 14 hours a day. That means this person, for example, perhaps cannot get married or cannot have kids, right? Because that's too difficult. Like I'm gonna need to sleep for 14 hours a day. It's gonna be very, very difficult to have kids if you have to sleep 14 hours a day unless you have a maid, right? You have to marry somebody who has a maid, or you won't be able to, only you can only do a part-time job, right? But that means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you certain situation, right? Alhamdulillah. Some people need to do this, some people do that, but you need to prioritize your time. And we should not reach the age of 60, may Allah protect us, or 40 or something like that, and not have woken up yet. وعن عائشة رضي الله عنها عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال لا تسبوا الأموات فإنهم قد أفضوا إلى ما قدموا. Aisha رضي الله عنها said the Prophet said, do not insult the dead. So if someone dies, should you go around saying bad things about them? He didn't used to pray. He did just say good things about them. That's it. Don't make up things about them that's not true. Don't overpraise them, and don't mention anything bad about them. Just whatever's good about them. MashaAllah, he really cared about his kids. Don't say he didn't used to pray. What's the point? There's no point, right? Unless there's a particular lesson to learn. Look, this person, I was there with him, and he did not say his shahada when he was dying. And I'll tell you why, because he did this and this and this. There's a lesson to learn, right? Or this person, when he was dying, he was telling me this. He said, I never used to pray. And he said, kids, make sure you pray. because here's your dad who is now dying and he has a whole lifetime of qadars to do and he never did it. Make sure you pray and make sure you do your qadars ASAP, right? And so things like that. But otherwise, by default, you shouldn't say, "Oh yeah, but that's." You should mention his bad things. Why? What's the point? He's gonna if any bad things he's already dealing with it in the grave right now. So there's no point. Don't do that. So just mention whatever is good and leave whatever is bad. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إذا مات الإنسان انقطع عمله إلا من ثلاث صدقة جارية وعلم ينتفع به أو ولد صالح يدعو له. Right, and so he said, when somebody dies, everything is cut off. You can't do any more good deeds apart from what? Perpetual sadaqah. So you left an endowment. You got some money. You built a house, and you said this house is for students of medicine who people who are studying medicine, people who are studying gynecology. This is for people who are studying Shafi fiqh. This is for people who are studying Hadith, for example. This is for people memorizing the Quran. This is for orphans of this city, right? That's called a waqf, an endowment. أو علم ينتفع به, or knowledge that benefits others, right? So you learn sacred knowledge to apply it and teach sacred knowledge so that people apply it, right? أو ولد صالح يدعو له, or a child, righteous children, you can say, a righteous child, you can say righteous children as well, that make dua for one. So it's sunnah to have as many children as you can have. But should you have 50,000 children and neglect them? No, there's no point in doing that at all. Rather, the obligation of children is to be very, very, very careful of what they're doing, etc. So yeah, if you can have 15 kids and guide them all and make sure they're all righteous, then Bismillah, that's great. But if you can't, and then you shouldn't have any more kids. You should say, listen, I need to focus on these kids. I can't do this. I got to do this is difficult, right? But having kids is not a joke. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال الله عز وجل الصيام جنة وإذا كان يوم صوم أحدكم فلا يرفث يومئذ ولا يسخب فإن سابه أحد أو قاتله فليقل إني امرؤ صائم. Abu Hurairah narrates the Prophet ﷺ said, fasting is a shield. It blocks one from the haram. It blocks one from heedlessness. And when one is, if one is fasting, he should neither use vulgarity nor raise his voice. Right? So should you use vulgarity normally? No. Should you raise your voice in anger normally? No. Raising your voice should be restricted to when? Sports and emergencies. Right? Raising the voice should not be a normal way that a human communicates. Right? Shouldn't be a normal way that a person communicates. Right? Shouting from downstairs, shouting from upstairs, shouting across the street. Right? That's not normal. That's not noble. Right? One of the signs of the Prophet ﷺ is that he was not wala sakhaban bil aswaq. That he doesn't yell. Right? He doesn't shout. It's not noble. It's low. Low. It's like a animal. That's animal communication. Raising your voice is animal communication, right? So not raising your voice is not good, right? Particularly raising your voice out of anger, right? This is very, very bad. فإن سابه أحد, so it says, and if anyone insults him with a star, then he should say, remind that person, or say, I'm fasting. I don't want to talk. I don't want to get into a discussion, right? So what does this tell us? It tells us that fasting is not about eating and drinking, right? Rather, hadith mentions that eating and fasting is not even about not eating and drinking. Rather, fasting is about guarding the tongue, right? Guarding the tongue. That's the main thing about fasting. The way you are. وعن أنس رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال تسحروا فإن في السحور أو السحور بركة. فإن في السحور بركة. So it says, eat the pre-dawn meal, or indeed the suhoor, which is having suhoor, or sahur, which is the food itself. There's a lot of barakah in that thing. Right? So even some people, they can't eat in the morning. They get sick, for example, if they feel nauseous if they eat in the morning. A glass of water, for example, is fine. وعن زيد بن خالد الجهني رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من فطر صائما كان له مثل أجره. Zayd ibn Khalid al-Juhani narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, Whoever feeds a fasting person, right? So somebody's not able to break their fast, they don't have food, or or give them the dates to break the fast, you will have the same reward as he has. Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, he explains this hadith. He says one of the reasons because the Salaf, the early Muslims, they wouldn't used to work during Ramadan, so they wouldn't have any food anyway. So if you didn't feed them, they wouldn't be able to fast. So you are the means that enables them to fast, right? وعن أبي قتادة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه سئل عن صيام يوم عاشوراء فقال يكفر السنة الماضية. So Abu Qatada, he says that the Prophet ﷺ was asked about fasting on the 10th of Muharram, Ashura. He said it wipes out the minor sins of the past year. It's a huge thing. Um, وعن أبي أيوب الأنصاري رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من صام رمضان ثم أتبعه ستا من شوال كان كصيام الدهر. So Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, he narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever fasts the 6 days of Shawwal and then follows it up with 6 days during Shawwal, it was equivalent to fasting the year. Because why? Every single day is like fasting 10 days, right? So 330 days of Ramadan times 10 is what? So what's 30 times 10?
300.
300 plus 6 days of Shawwal times 10.
60.
360 days, like 360 days of the year, right? The year is 355 days, right? Approximately. Lunar calendar, 355 days approximately. But it's like fasting a whole year. وعن أبي قتادة الأنصاري رضي الله عنه قال سئل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن صوم عن يوم عرفة فقال يكفر السنة الماضية والباقية. Right, the Abu Qatada al-Ansari, he said he was asked about fasting day of Arafah. The Prophet was asked about Arafah, and he said it wipes out the minor sins of the past year and the year to come. Right, so it's a huge blessing. وعن عبد وعن عبد عن عبد الله بن عمرو رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال صم من كل شهر 3 أيام فذلك صوم الدهر. He said fast 3 days in every single month, ideally the white nights, right? The 13, 14, 15, right? 13, 14, 15th of each lunar month, ideally, but otherwise three, because that's equivalent to fasting the entire year. Again, because each fast it gets 10, and so that's like fasting the whole month, fasting the whole year. And so, general principle, it is wrong to leave something sunnah for no reason. And it is right to leave a sunnah for a more important sunnah or to leave a sunnah for a fard. Right? So, for example, a woman or a child, for example, the parents say, I don't want you to fast today. Right? The child's going to fast anyway. So, the child should listen to their parents. Right? If they're a little kid, they should do that. Right? Or a woman, for example, her husband says, please don't fast today. Right? It's going to be haram for her to fast today. So now for her not to fast today is haram, and for her to fast today is haram, and for her to not fast is obligatory. That's what Allah wants her to do. And similarly, somebody who says, I'm not going to fast today, why? Because I've got guests coming. Because I'm going to play sports with my kids. Because I can't work. I remember once, fasting a sunnah fast, I'm literally falling asleep at work. Like, is that a good sunnah? Is that what they pay me to do? Like, I'm falling asleep at work because I'm fasting. Is that what Allah wants me to do? That's not what Allah wants you to do. So then you should go and break your fast, bro. You shouldn't do that. That's not good. Right? So now it is sunnah to leave the sunnah, i.e., Allah wants you to not fast. So, but this is the standard we should have: is you should fast every single day that it is not sunnah, unless it is sunnah to break your fast, or unless it is fard to break the fast. Right? So you're obviously not going to fast Eid, right? Uh, but I want to fast every single day because it's good. Okay, but today I'm not going to fast because of this. Today I'm not going to fast because of that. And today I'm not going to fast because of that. And it may be most of the time, and maybe half the time, maybe not. Right? But the way somebody should be praying the whole time, right? You pray your sunnahs, all your sunnahs, and just keep praying, 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 right? Just keep praying. Unless there's something else that Allah wants you to do. Like I should study, I should go to work, I should do some exercise, I should help out in the kitchen, I should play with my kids, I should socialize with my wife, I should study something that's important. I need to read something, I need to do something else. But the idea that it's only sunnah, that's wrong, right? Is that the believer is just engaged in either the fard that Allah wants you to do, or the various sunnahs that I want you to do. And some sunnahs are different. Sunnah of hanging out with your parents and having a chat. Sunnah of sleeping properly, or the wajib of sleeping properly, right? So should you pray tahajjud? Yes. Okay, but what if it harms you? Don't do it. Wrong. What if I can't do my job if I pray tahajjud? It's summer, for example, summer in England, and I just can't get up that early, right? So like sometimes Fajr in England is like 1:30. It's like I can't wake up at 1:30 and then pray, and then the Jama'ah is going to be in the masjid at 5 o'clock or 4:30. So I'm going to be up for 3 hours and then I can't do it. Okay, then don't do it. Yeah, but I feel guilty. Why do you feel guilty? Feel guilty by not prioritizing what you're supposed to prioritize. But it's totally fine when the right thing to do is leave a sunnah for a greater sunnah, or leave a sunnah for a fard. But leaving the sunnah for nothing, that's wrong. That's cheating yourself. That's called tatfif, right? Like selling yourself short. May Allah protect us. The obligation of zakat. عن عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال ما من أحد لا يؤدي زكاة ماله إلا مثل له يوم القيامة شجاعا أقرع حتى يطوق به عنقه. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever does not pay the poor Jew, the zakat that is due on his wealth, whatever kind of wealth it is, will have it transformed on the day of rising into a bald-headed poisonous snake. So they say it's bald-headed because the poison has made it go bald, which will coil around its neck tightly, like biting it and biting it, biting, saying, I am the zakat you didn't pay. I am the zakat you didn't pay. We just remind ourselves, it says Sunan an-Nasa'i, okay? Al-Kubra, not Al-Kibri. Al-Kubra. The obligation of Hajj. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من حج فلم يرفث ولم يفسق رجع كيوم or يوم is better كيوم ولدته أمه, right? Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu writes, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever performs Hajj and neither engages in vulgarities nor sin, then will return home like the day his mother gave birth to him, i.e. totally sinless. Right? So again, tells us that it's not just physically going to a place, but rather Hajj means a way that you are. How did you speak? How did you carry yourself, etc. Right, and some of the Sahaba, they were on Hajj and they're rushing and rushing. We have to go here, we have to go there. And the Prophet said, no, 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 no. He said, فَإِنَّ الْبِرَّ لَيْسَ بِالْإِيضَاءِ. He said, goodness is not by rushing around, right? This aggressiveness is not, that's not part of Hajj, right? You don't do goodness by rushing around. You don't do things aggressively, right? So even when you're intense in worship or intense in learning, you don't be aggressive. That's wrong. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال الحج المبرور ليس له جزاء إلا الجنة. An accepted Hajj has no reward except paradise, right? So that's an accepted Hajj. So therefore, Hajj is really important, but it's also really important that it be accepted. So number one, study your fiqh properly before you go on Hajj. Number one. Number two, be with a good group. People who are not making riba, not making namima, not watching TV, not sharing stupid things on social media. Be with people who are dhikr so that you think this is a good, I mean, good environment, right? Even if it costs twice the price, go with that group, right? Find the good group. That's number one. Study your fiqh of Hajj. Make sure you know what you're doing, and make sure with a good group. Super important, right? If I remember correctly, in my group, I think there were some people playing cards or something like that, or watching TV. I can't remember what they were doing, right? Some people are crazy, they're on Arafah and they're like doing crazy things. May Allah protect us and guide us, right? So be with people who do want to do dhikr, they want to do Quran, they want to be with people who will inspire you. عن جابر بن عبد الله رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال الحجاج والعمار وفد الله دعاهم فأجابوه وسألوه فأعطاهم. Um, So Jabir ibn Abdullah narrated that Prophet ﷺ said, those performing Hajj and Umrah are the delegation, the special guest of Allah. So, i.e., if you're there and you know this person's on Hajj, even if they're acting like a fool, even if they're being rude to you, even if they're wronging you, be very careful. You're a dinner table of Allah, and the person in front of you is a special guest of Allah. So don't say anything to him. Don't get lash out, don't get angry. Just so all of these people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invited them to his house so that he would forgive them and give them Jannah. So don't say anything. Don't get angry. Don't get, oh my God, I paid for this and didn't get it. Don't say anything. How would you behave if you were a special guest to a meal and the person in front of you is a special guest and the food is burnt and the food is late and they didn't give you the water even though you asked for it 5 times? Just be quiet, be respectful, because the point is the invite. So this is the same way you should be on Hajj. We mentioned before, it says Al-Bazar fi Kashf al-Astar. And so I believe this is by Al-Haythami, Kashf al-Astar. Or is it by Haythami? 1 second, Kashf al-Astar. Al-Haythami, yeah. So this is by Al-Haythami, right? So Kashf al-Astar is by Al-Haythami, right? So this is a late scholar, okay? What he did is he mentioned which hadiths are in Bazzar but not in the 6 books, okay? So Musnad al-Bazzar is al-Bazzar, right? So it should say ذكره الهيثمي في كشف الأستار, not al-Bazzar. So Bazzar is a 4th century, is a great hadith scholar, which is al-Bahr al-Zakhar, al-Bahr al-Zakhar. Yeah, that's his book, al-Bahr al-Zakhar, or it's called Musnad al-Bazzar, right? Musnad al-Bazzar, right? That's the book, his book, Musnad al-Bazzar, right? So it's not true to say it's Bazzar mentioned it in Kashf al-Astar. Kashf al-Astar is by Al-Haythami, who's in the 9th century, I believe. Yeah, 9th century. Whereas Bazzar is so this is a late hadith book. This is an early hadith book, and he's kind of mixed the 2 names. عن جابر بن عبد الله رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال ماء زمزم لما شرب له. Right? That the Prophet ﷺ said, the water of Zamzam can be used for whatever it's drank for. So you make a niyyah for whatever it is. So, Ya Allah, find me a righteous spouse. Ya Allah, give me Jannah. Ya Allah, give me, Qabul farmay. Right? Right? Allah, please just accept this from me. Like, accept me. Make me of those people that you love and accept. Ya Allah, help me get out of debt. Ya Allah, whatever it is. Um, Chapter 14, Jihad and Martyrdom or dying. عن عبد الله بن أبي أوفى رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال الجنة تحت ظلال السيوف, that paradise is beneath the shade of swords, right? So it's a very noble and beautiful thing to do. What is it? Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori, right? That's the phrase. There's a famous poem that's a kind of doesn't satirize but criticizes this thing. It's called Dulce et decorum est, which is it's sweet and noble to die for your country. So we say no, Dulce et decorum est pro Deo mori, right? To die for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's something noble, right? And if your country is doing something noble, fine. If your country is not doing something noble, then no, right? So, but this is something that we would all love to do. And be very proud of our children, right? Would you be proud of your child who reached puberty and then died as a shaheed? Yeah. Oh, but he didn't graduate. Oh, but he never got married. Is that what you want him to do? You want him to graduate? He never finished his studies. He never, it's like he didn't live his life. That was his life, right? That is life. Dying for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is life. It's a very noble thing, right? Similarly, for example, being a firefighter. Okay, what did this person do? Well, I mean, he didn't make it through. He kind of failed high school, but he was quite athletic, and so he tried out being a firefighter, and he got in, and he died at 21 in a fire, saving a kid. Beautiful, noble thing to do. Great, right? It's a great thing. Right? There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Oh my God, he died so young. It's like that's beautiful, right? What was the Sahabiya? Her son died in jihad. Bakhin, good job, boy. Right? Obviously, you're going to be sad. You're going to cry, of course, but it's a beautiful thing to do, right? And we should be very happy and know, and want that for other people that they die as shaheed. Right? The paradise is beneath the shadow of shades of sword, and the eloquence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Very eloquent. عن أبي موسى الأشعري رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من قاتل لتكون كلمة الله هي العليا فهو في سبيل الله. So, however, there's a condition. You have to be sincere. Why are you fighting? You're fighting for your tribe, you're fighting for power, you're fighting for revenge, or are you fighting that the word of Allah be paramount? So whoever fought, whoever fights, right? So this is man qatala. The past tense in Arabic, if it's in a conditional sentence, is whoever fights, so that the word of Allah reigns supreme. So that the word of Allah reigns supreme, right? That the word of Allah might reign supreme, or that should be subjunctive, I think. Allahu alam. Then such a person is in the path of Allah, and if you're not, then not. So now here's the question: if you're not trying to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you're trying to establish the prayer in your life, what are you fighting for? So when you win the battle, when you win that battle and you have power, what are you going to do? Are you going to establish the prayer? Are you going to command the right and forbid the wrong? Or are you going to be a flake? Because we can already see that right now. You're not praying, you're not wearing hijab, you're listening to music, you're going to haram places, eating haram food, interest. You don't want the deen. Why is it suddenly that when war comes along now, jihad, jihad, jihad? Where's the jihad? So the Prophet ﷺ said, what? Al-mujahid man jahada nafsahu fima nahallahu an. Believe, right? Prophet ﷺ said, mujahid is he who fights himself concerning that which Allah has forbidden. If I remember the hadith correctly. So if you want to be a mujahid, you have to do jihad an-nafs first. Yes, you have to go, whether you're righteous or not, you have to defend your people, defend Islam. But make sure you fight yourself and don't just fight other people. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا يجتمع كافر وقاتله في النار أبدا. The Prophet ﷺ said, the disbeliever and the Muslim who kills him, i.e. in jihad, during war will never be joined in the hellfire, ever. They're never going to be together. So it's a way to save yourself from the hellfire. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال والذي نفس محمد بيده لوددت أني أغزو في سبيل الله فأقتل. ثم أغزو فأقتل ثم أغزو فأقتل. Right. So it's possible to put a fatha there, but I think the dhamma there is more clear. He says, the Prophet ﷺ said, I swear by him in whose hands my soul, I wish I could fight in the way of Allah and then be killed in the way of Allah. And then again, fight in the way of Allah and then be killed in Allah. And so, i.e., it's not just I want to die, but also I want to suffer for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, are you suffering for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Are you putting yourself in difficulties for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala right now? No. Okay, then what are you talking about then? Because jihad is not easy. It's not easy. You have to do very difficult things. You have to do really, really hard things. And so that's jihad. So are you making your life difficult for yourself for the sake of Allah? No. Then what are you talking about? Right? You're taking the easy route and doing the haram. Then that's not fighting. Fighting is, it's difficult, but I'm doing it for the sake of Allah. Hijab, I'm doing it. It's hard. It's very embarrassing, weird to wear hijab in public, but I'm doing it for the sake of Allah. Praying, I'm going to pray even if it's weird. I'm going to say what is right even though it's weird. I'm going to defend what is right even though it doesn't make any sense to people. Whatever it is, right? I'm going to do things that look strange. I'm going to stand out for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to do what is right for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though it's difficult, even if it hurts me, right? The Prophet said, I wish I could suffer and die and feel pain and die for the sake of Allah and then do it again and then do it again, right? This is love, right? So you say, for example, would you crawl through vomit with 1 inch of breathing space for 10,000 miles to save your child? Yes, of course I do it. That's what we're talking about. So it's unbelievably difficult. You have to crawl through. It stinks. It hurts. You're probably going to drown, but it's 10,000 miles. Would you do it? Yes. That's called love. And who do you love more, your children or Allah? I'll do it for Allah. Okay, fine. That's what we're talking about. وعن سعيد بن زيد رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من قتل دون ماله فهو شهيد ومن قتل دون دينه فهو شهيد ومن قتل دون دمه فهو شهيد ومن قتل دون أهله فهو شهيد. And Sa'id ibn Zayd, he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever dies defending his property, right? This is my land. Can't take it from me. And he died protecting his property. Then he's a shaheed. And whoever is killed defending his religion, he's a shaheed. And whoever is killed defending himself is a shaheed. And whoever is killed defending his family is a shaheed. Right, again, Nasa'i. عن سهل بن حنيف رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من سأل الله الشهادة بصدق بلغه الله منازل الشهداء وإن مات على فراشه. Right? The Prophet said, whoever asks Allah for martyrdom with sincerity, really, and bisidqin, with trueness, really, really wants, Ya Allah, I really want to die as a shaheed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow him to take the ranks of the shuhada even if he dies on his bed. Right? وعن سهل بن سعد رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال رباط يوم في سبيل الله خير من الدنيا وما عليها. He said 1 day of active duty in the Muslim military service, ribat, to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is better than the world and everything that's in it. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من مات ولم يغزو ولم يحدث به نفسه مات على شعبة من نفاق. He said, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever dies and did not strive in the way of Allah. Could you fight in jihad? No. Okay. Did you ever aspire to it? Did you be like, oh yeah, I really want to do this. How can I do this? I really want to do this. Try and think of a plan, right? He came up with a plan. Then he dies with a branch of hypocrisy, with a level of hypocrisy in him. Inshallah, we'll stop there. So may Allah make us of the shuhada And where does it all start? It starts now. Are we willing to oppose our nafs for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because that's jihad. Are you willing to prefer Allah to yourself in the what you eat, in what you say, in what you look at, in what you wear, in what you do for your living, in what you spend and what you don't spend, in the priorities, in the way that you order things? You did A before B. Okay, why did you do A before B? For Allah, for the sake of your nafs, for the sake of my nafs? Did you check your bank account and then pray, or did you pray and then check your bank account? They're all halal. I'm not saying it's haram. But why did you check your bank account and then pray? For the sake of Allah. Why? Because I knew that I was really worried about whether that check had gone in or not. And I was really worried and I knew I wouldn't pray properly. Okay, alhamdulillah. Or was it just because you want to find out how much money you have, even though it's not important, there's no practical repercussions of it. If there's no practical repercussions of it, why are you worrying about it then? If there's nothing you can do about, what's the point? So it's sunnah that when you pray, that you do things that you get things out of the way that would distract you. But often the time is you're distracted because you have a problem. You're not distracted because there's a real thing. Right? You should go to the bathroom. You should eat a little bit of food. Make sure you're not really hungry when you're praying. If you're really tired, sleep and then pray, etc. Right? An important phone call. Did your son get out of hospital or not? Is he okay or not? Did your wife arrive or not? Make the phone call. Are you okay? Anything you're worrying, you should do that first. But half the time, what do we do in a day in and day out thing is on a micro level, we continually prove to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that nafsi akbar, myself is more important than you, O Allah. Because you put your hadh, the thing that you want, over what Allah wants. Right? بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى. You prefer the dunya, meaning you prefer food over something else. The way that you think, food, pleasures, attainment, whatever it is, right? Continually, we do this again and again and again, and may Allah forgive us. So the jihad is what? No, Allah first. If Allah was watching me now, what would I do first? How much would I eat? How much would I drink? When would I wake up? What I say, what I not say? The shahwa of speech is a major thing. May Allah forgive us. Okay, so next week, inshallah, we'll come to the merits and the virtues of dua and of supplication. Oh, excuse me. Sallallahu alaihi Muhammad. وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك